Yeah, this is really the first time that I've gotten to see it all finished. Brought my work in, framed and everything, and sort of worked out the order that I wanted them hung in. But now I'm seeing them for the first time, actually, lighted and on the walls and everything. It's kind of fun. What a great show this is. I feel pretty good being in this show. It's like maybe one of my favorite shows that I've been in. So, Jerome, you want to ask me any questions, or you just want me to jabber?
Turner, I know there's a story behind at least the material that you were painting on. You want to start there?
Yeah, okay. So, there's a little essay that I wrote that's a handout on the table where you can read about that, sort of. But like most libraries in the world, unfortunately, especially in the United States, the libraries are being dismantled. And all the printed books are being thrown away. I call it the war on books. I think it's going to turn out in the end to be a real bad mistake for a lot of different reasons. But that little war on books came to Hastings College a couple of years ago. And I tried my best to stop it, and I couldn't do that. And it just really hurt me every time that I would go to the library and I would see books that were marked for destruction or were already in the process of being destroyed. They just, all those precious books, they take a razor blade and strip the paper out of them, and the paper goes to recycling. And then the covers were being stacked up to go to the landfill. Two dumpsters, one for recycling and the other for the landfill. And it just really hurt me. And I'm kind of like Jerome with his healing of Trump. I feel a need to make things right somehow, or at least so that I can live with them. And it made me feel better to start trying to figure out something to do with those books. And the first thing I did was I started grabbing books that I knew people would want, So I found a 3-volume set on Newton, and one of them is a reproduction of Newton's original De Principia, and in Latin, And then there was a translated version, and then there was a Newton's Principia for the layman, and beautiful big volumes, they're that thick with these very deluxe jackets on them and everything. And I gathered those up and took them to the Brads, to the two physics professors. And there was a 5-volume set with each book this thick that was on the history of maps. Absolutely beautiful. I took that whole set to Rob Babcock. I brought you the ones that were on ceramics. And Aaron has a special interest in architecture. So I took him all the history of architecture books and that sort of thing. Well, there's only so much that you can do, when there are absolutely thousands of books that are marked for execution. I'm just one person. I don't have time to do that. And then it came to me, wow, with just a little bit of work, these covers could be made into canvases for painting. And so I took a pile of them home and started experimenting with how to cut the spine and how to make a nice hospital bed sheet tuck on the corner and then glue it. And I found that it's not hard to do. In an hour, I can do 10 of them. And so what I've got now is, and the material is great. This buckram, it's very much like canvas. Some of them are raw, some of them are sealed, and so it's good painting material. Well, so now, at this point, it has become my home studio practice. It's what I'm doing, is painting these ghost books, I call them. And every day, I have a different color and a slightly different size. And I've tried to really take off all the limits for what I want to do with it. I'm painting in acrylics, fast. I'm trying to do one every day, at least one every day. Sometimes they take me 2 days. Sometimes I return to them over multiple days, but I'm putting out probably one a day. And normally when I'm working hard, I try to do sequential things. I try to do one that connects to another, to another, to another. And it's always been sort of important to me to do things that look like they're supposed to go together. I've completely cut that out. It's like, I try to sit down with absolutely no thought in my mind and just start making. And, whatever's on my mind comes out. And so, I had just been looking at Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime paintings, which is a great love of mine. All kinds of tribal stuff goes for me. And so I said, well, I think I could do that. And it uses this pointillistic technique, and I really studied, how they manage their colors and shapes and all like that. So this is not a copy of a Dreamtime painting, but it could be mistaken for one, pretty easily, I think. I like that one. Well, one thing leads to another, whether I try to make it do that or not. So, that same sort of dotting technique came into these, and you can find it in a lot of my work, like over here, the same thing. This one and this one, I think, and to some extent, this one really reflect that, interaction with Australian Aboriginal Dreamtime painting. But yeah, like I say, I'm not really necessarily trying to do that, but I think all of these reflect what's on my mind that day. And I have a almost unlimited supply of these canvases for the future, because when I realized that I could do this, I brought home several hundred books that are stacked up in my living room now, and some of them have been prepared as canvases. Some of them, I haven't even cut the books out of them. Some of them, I'm trying to talk myself into making them into paintings because I like the books so much, But I don't have room in my house. I purged my own library a few years ago, and I tried to give away all the books that I could. Some of them just had to go to Goodwill. So that's kind of the background on the material. I guess that I should say that this is the first time that I've ever made a dedicated study of acrylics. We've all used acrylics. I use acrylics all the time, but I'm really finding out what acrylics can and cannot do. And, simple things like just the matte medium, all the phenomenal effects that you can get from handling that stuff. I think some of these really are kind of about the painting of acrylics. So this one right here is a stamp, which is a painting technique that I use a lot. I cut stamps and form stamps, and I'm a printmaker. And so this one was a big rubber block eraser. So there's the unit right there. And I tried to design it so that when it was stamped, step and repeat like this, the meander would continue. Well, this beautiful paint right here, which if you get real close to it, it almost looks like icing, That's matte medium and a little bit of white. And it just interacted with that stamp beautifully, where you put the stamp down and then pull it off and it kind of goes, it sucks it back and you get this nice effect. I'm discovering what acrylic paint and matte medium and the various additives for acrylic paint can do. I'll just, since I started talking about the stamps, a lot of these have stamp stuff in them. This is a stamp right here that each of these little rectangles is the unit. It's a makeup applicator that I cut using a soldering iron, wood burning tool. So it's step and repeat in this pattern right here. And this one is also a stamp made out of a makeup applicator. So that's a stamp that's turned in various rotations, which is, I think those kinds of things really fascinate me because it's obviously a repetition on a pattern, but because of the nature of that stamp and the rotations, the repetition kind of eludes you, half eludes you, It's like you see that it's a repetition, but it dodges the idea that it's repetition. And so that one too was using that white acrylic paint and a lot of matte medium. And then the green color behind it is painted in for the background, but the blue, which is so important to this one, is actually the color of the book. And I try to make the color of the book be as active as the paint. Since I am, experimenting with using different colors for grounds, I want to make a point of utilizing the color of the book. It's just that happens to be a special part of what's going on here. I'm learning things about color theory. I'm learning things about the interaction of color because of the fact that I'm facing a different color problem every day. So in this one right here, you can see the margin is the color of the book. So what you typically perceive as being the figures there, that's the part that's left negative. It's almost like I'm making paintings like I make woodcuts. I'm the negative, is the image in a lot of cases. Okay, so that is your skill and making kind of stuff that you get your students to discuss, right? I don't know, context and idea to some extent sort of merge with me sometimes, but because of the life that I live, I fly over the Mississippi River and the Platte River a lot. And every time that it's clear or have a good sunrise or sunset or something like that, I'm at the window taking pictures all the time. And, this is from having viewed the Mississippi River from 8 miles high many, many times. And, one of the things that fascinates me is the meandering stream and the way that it naturally does that. And you can see lots of oxbow lakes, places where the meander got real wide and then they had a flood and it cut it off and it turns it into a little lake. And this particular part of the Mississippi that I'm trying to depict here, there are a lot of oxbows that are gonna happen in the next century. A big flood is gonna turn this one right here into a straighter path, and then this will become an oxbow. And you can see, how here in Nebraska, where you have water drainage through an agricultural field, and you look at it, it's a little bit different color. You see a lot of that along the Mississippi, where you can see vestigial traces of the river, and that's the course that it used to run, and it's a slightly different color. Those kinds of things just really fascinate me. Or like in this one right here, which is another reference to the ancient riverbed, I like seeing how different farmers treat, the water drainage. And you can see that really nicely all through Nebraska when you fly over this cropland. You'll fly over a field and you'll see where the property line on one side of the road is one farmer, and on the other side of the road it's a different farmer. And the ways that they're handling, the drainage around a little sometimes river. It's real interesting. One guy goes straight through it, and the other one, does contour plowing around it. And then this one, I would say, is related to that because I found some 19th century maps of all the former traces of the Mississippi River. And they looked like calligraphy to me. And so this one, I tried to turn the idea of those maps into something that almost looks like Islamic script, or Sanskrit or something like that. One of the things that comes up a lot in the paintings that I've been doing is books themselves and the written arts. And so this is one of a number of things that I've done that was made out of a 19th century Luther Bible, which I think a lot of people have heard me talk about. But I possess a beautiful old Bible in Old High German that was letterpress printed. And it sounds like it'd be real valuable, but it's not. It laid in somebody's barn for a long time. So it's worm-eaten and it's, been rained on. And it's really cool stuff to make art out of. And so that's what that one is. You can find a lot of references to letter forms and writing and ancient scripts and like this one right here. This comes, the type of calligraphy that I think of this being comes out of my eternal love for various scripts, and especially tribal scripts and ancient scripts. It's called epigraphy, that's the study of ancient scripts. And this has got it, this one's got the same thing. My first real art teacher was a Chinese man who I studied brush painting with. And I can spontaneously generate a page of what looks like Chinese ideograms, and you can't read a word of it. I have no idea how to write real Chinese, but I can make it look like it's Chinese. So I like it when letter arts and something about the book, the art of the book comes back into it. I should say that some of these are very special dedications to a particular person. The reason why the first books that they began to destroy were ones that hadn't been checked out much. And they had ways to track that. And so in one case, like this one right here, my friend Joachim Wunderlich, who was the German teacher at Hastings College, was apparently the only person who ever checked it out 4 times. And so the card was still stuck in the book. We used to sign a card to check out a book. So Joachim's signature was in there 4 times. And so eventually I'll give that one to him. And the book itself was about Tyrolia, the northern Italy, southern Austria area. And those are kind of some colors that I associate with. So this one, I really think of as being an aerial landscape. There are a lot of landscapes actually throughout the body of work that I've been doing. I mean, I think this one is probably the most directly landscape-oriented ones, but I credit that one to Milton Avery, the great American painter, of the early 20th century, early to mid 20th century, who was one of the first Americans to experiment with that direction that Georgia O'Keeffe went, where the landscape becomes almost abstract. It's still recognizable as a landscape, but it's getting right on the border of being totally abstract. Yeah, well, one of these I won't, I really won't point to it because it's a little too sacred in a way. I had a friend named Bill Stever who was one of my first students, and he and I were the ones who came up with the idea of the student-led symposium that happens once a year at Hastings College. He was a student. And Bill went on to be a producer of Nebraska Public Radio and, you know, kind of an important person in the arts in Nebraska. Unfortunately, he died about 7 or 8 years ago, way, way too young for that to happen. But one of the books, I opened it up, and Bill Stever was the last person to check it out. And so I took his signature, you know, I took the card and buried it on the back of the book. And every time I picked up that painting, it gave me pain, kind of. I covered it over, but it's in there now, you know. So it's like a buried relic. So, you know, I guess I don't really have all that much more to say. I just one of the things that I really liked about this show is seeing my work showed alongside everybody else in the department. You correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is an extraordinarily good collection of things. You know, Shabnam's paintings over here have been working on me pretty hard since the first time I ever saw them when she was a candidate to apply for a job here. You know, I would like to say that she and I have a lot in common as painters, but I think that would be entirely too self-flattering. Shabnam is one of the greatest colorists who I've ever encountered, and you know, her facility in composition and in drawing and painting is just really amazing. And then, you know, well, I don't know. I could keep talking about all of my colleagues because we talk about art every day. You know, I sort of know what's going on. You know, I know what's behind some of the thoughts that are behind Jerome's jugglers, and you know, I guess I could say something there that he and I are sort of, you know, cutting clothes out of the same cloth in a way because. These acrobats of Jerome's really remind me a lot of the things that I do with Mayan glyphs. The way that human figures and animals and stuff like that are squeezed into little rectangular or square forms. And, you know, the way I like to put it when I do that is that I kind of feel like you put an object in a little tray and soak it in water for a week until it's like swelled up and filled up all the space, you know. So they're stuff like Egyptian, you know, where every single square inch of a cartouche is taken up, you know, with stuff, but it all seems like it goes together, right? And then, you know, I talked to Aaron quite a while about the making of what became that video over there. One day, I was walking down the hall, and Aaron stopped me and said, "Hey, Turner, have you ever been on the interstate and gotten behind a semi-truck that's got a whole load of green sewer conduit pipes?" And I thought, well, you know, Aaron, I'm not sure I have, but I can picture it. And he said, yeah, that's what I'm going to do in my show, something about that. And so I think that might be what's behind the green circle there, but definitely the view of the lumberyard. You know, he loves repetitions of things like sewer pipes or 2x4s. And one day he was waiting to check out at Menards, and this was what he saw. You know, all the packing material was like, you know, waving in the breeze like seaweed. Yeah, this is just, it's a lot of fun to see what people have done with things that they've been talking about for years. Okay?
Well, thanks, Turner, once again, so eloquently put, and thanks for taking us along your own personal journey.
All right.